we will get an editor to make sure it's all perfect.
Okay.
And I will have a sip of coffee.
Okay, I was going to ask if there was going to be any edits to this because
Yeah, I think so. I do have the most important question before Stephen, our SO8, kicks us off is, when you did a Tiger Talk and your name is Tony, did anyone say Tony the Tiger and refer to the cereal of the 1980s?
no one other than Kim. But,
I mean, it's such the obvious,
yeah,
it's such the obvious thing. How did that not happen?
I didn't say it out loud.
Wait, Stephen, do you know who Tony the Tiger is?
Yeah.
Okay.
Hopefully by the end of this, we can get Tony to say, it's great.
What do you think the chances of that are, Stephen? Come on. You've known me long enough.
Oh my God. I love it. Awesome.
Zero chance of that happening.
Zero?
Zero chance.
I mean, if I say, what do you think of our dashboards? Aren't you going to go there?
I might do that.
You might.
I think I'm getting cringe already.
So you're saying there's a chance.
Yeah, there might be. For you, Kate, there might be a chance.
Awesome. All right,
So-
Stephen, how's it going?
This is going great. It's great. So for this, it's the intended audience, just with our network and just people to get us to know everyone a little bit more authentically, sincerely, in a candid sense. But for those of you who don't know, I'll introduce Kate first, and then you can give your background with the professional experience. But I had this written out. Where Kate is a dynamic leader who brings her vision to life while inspiring everyone around her. Known for her determination, creativity, and collaborative spirit, she doesn't just tackle challenges, she turns them into opportunities for growth and impact.
Did
Kate
you
Visconti.
write that? That's very kind. I am grateful for that introduction, Stephen. I am so excited to be here. And it's been an awesome journey for this serendipitous meetup through both of you. So Kate Visconti, founder and CEO of 5to-Flow. 1 week from tomorrow, we will be 5 years old. So this is an exciting part of our journey of bringing in critical partners to help take the next 5 years to a whole new level. For anybody who doesn't know what 5to-Flow is or who we are, I've given us a persona. We are a collective of leaders around the globe who are really interested in ending the $8.9 trillion global epidemic of burnout and disengagement. Truly believe that there's a better way for work. All of us at 5to-Flow are burnout survivors. We almost feel like we are, a recovering group that really wanted to take what we've learned through our experiences and help others succeed through our lessons. So thanks for having us on today, Stephen.
It's my pleasure. And Tony, so you're not on the back burner, I'll introduce you because I have a great introduction as well. Tony Dorsey is a force of resilience and grit, a leader who turns challenges into opportunities and potential into performance. Known for his relentless drive, sharp vision, and ability to inspire others, he doesn't just talk about perseverance, he lives it. Tony Dorsey.
Oh, wow. Great intro. Thank you, Stephen. Tony Dorsey, founder and CEO of Peak Ops Advisors. I'm a former senior vice president, operations. Been very fortunate in my career to work with amazing brands here in the Columbus region, Rogue Fitness, Takea USA, and Homage Inc. clothing brand. Started my consulting business because I really felt a pull and a call to help companies that are struggling with scale get that sage advisor, that executive that can help them scale and do the things that they need to without the commitment of high six-figure salary, equity, and all the things that come. Because if a company gets that wrong early, it can really hurt young companies. So, yeah, everything that Steven said, it's kind of, I see myself as someone who took their career by the horns and made it happen, taking myself from entry-level supervisor all the way to senior vice president in a relatively short time. I consider myself a young man, even though the grays and the baldness say different. But I want to give that knowledge to young founders, to leaders, and teach them, that if you want it, you got to go get it. And I kind of have a blueprint that worked for me, and I share it. So
I love that, Tony. That just made me think of a conversation I had yesterday with a woman who just wrote a book about being an unexpected CEO, as you and I might think of ourselves. But we said, be the leader that you needed when you were 20. So I feel that about you. It sounds awesome.
Yeah, that's it. And I hope that I am, but there are times that I'm not, and that's why I need people like Kate in my life to help me see things in a new perspective. So,
yeah, the difference of perspectives is what drew me to both of you, really. Kate, with her, just ability to just broadcast this vision and make it come to life, and then inspire others to live their dreams within that vision. And then for you, Tony, I would say there's a quote that reminds me of it. It's not talking about your philosophy, but embodying it. And that's what you do the best, is taking those blueprints of what your actual experience was with Homage and with Rogue, and planning that out for other people to replicate, and have their own versions of success. You do the hard things, and it's not just talking about in the business world, but like with doing your ruck sessions as well. You never mentioned those. I'm a huge fan. I'm a little biased, because I also like doing the hard things and persevering. And one of my questions for you that I wanted to kind of understand a little bit deeper is, like, at some point, it's like, you got to ask yourself, why do the hard things? I mean, you've reached a certain point in your career where you've had professional success. Well, like, why, and then, like, why ruck and make your body ache? Like, why not retire? Well, why do you continue to break through adversity?
Well, retire. I have 4 kids, so that's not happening. 2 in college and 2 left in high school. So that's not an option. But it's just the way I'm wired. I grew up in a modest home with 2 parents that worked really hard, but they never handed us anything. Like, I knew if I wanted to go to college, I had to get a scholarship. So I just made that happen. And when I got to college, I went on a basketball scholarship, and I was really good at basketball, but I loved football. And when the football coach gave me an opportunity to be on the football team, and, a lot of guys wouldn't have taken that, because playing one college sport is hard enough. Playing 2 college sports, you give up and you sacrifice a lot. But I did it, and I was a 2-sport athlete, so it's just part of my DNA to make my path harder for some reason, and not take the easy way. And then, in my career, when I got into the business world, I was really fortunate to have great mentors and be the type of person that leaders wanted to see succeed. So I made a lot of lateral steps in my career, which I think prepared me and kind of catapulted me faster than my peers. When I look at where my peers are today versus where I got to, I was willing to take those side steps and learn, so moving from operations into the MP&A world and learning how to forecast, or learning how to, be analytical, and then moving back to operations and applying that stuff my career was a lot of zigzags and a lot of sidesteps. I didn't necessarily chase the dollar. I chased the experience that eventually got me to the dollar that I wanted. Yeah, I mean, I think I'm just hardwired for hard stuff. I love challenging myself. For everybody that's listening, you referenced rucking. I'm a hiker. My partner, she's a hiker, and we love going out in nature. But it's also we like to challenge each other. And Kim never lets me win anything. So now we ruck, which is, for folks that don't know, we throw heavy weight on our backs and we go for miles at a time, up and down elevations, to primarily so at the end of our journey, we know that we accomplished something, and then, we feel good for the rest of the day, and so, yeah, we started doing that. We want to stay young. Like I said, I have young children and kids that are active, so I've always wanted to be an example for them. So, if 46-year-old dad can do it, they have no excuses to skip practice or not go to wrestling, because I'm out there sweating and hurting and doing those things. So I just try to be an example for my kids and, for my family, and that's always been my motivation.
Living by example.
Try.
I love that. Stephen, can I make a couple points that Tony made me think of?
Go ahead.
All right, couple of things I had to write down because you said so many cool things that made me think a lot of our commonalities. And so I too grew up super, super poor, welfare poor, condemned house poor, and put myself through college. I'm 50 and I'm still paying student loans, which includes a master's. And so I learned something a lot about being a CEO, and this question, Stephen, you asked about, like, why do it? Why put yourself through that? And there's a lot to be said about building grit, and as you build and train for grit, like making the walk through the woods harder by carrying 50 pounds, we are training for grit. And there's so much science behind it. You can read Angela Duckworth's book around grit, and we're firm believers in it. I'm very similar to Tony. Like, anything that could be a little bit easier, I'm like, well, we're going to go the harder route. I do that with skiing. I do that with hiking as well. My co-founder, Jason, is also a professional athlete, and he and I train together a lot, and I always make the lifts harder than they have to be to challenge myself, because what that actually does scientifically for us is then we're in a meeting, right? And somebody's being belligerent or obstinate or frustrating, and we've already trained this muscle of, like, this is not any more difficult than carrying 50 pounds through the woods, so I've got this. And there's a calm that we're training our stress hormones to know how to manage. And so I've traced that through my career. So Tony, in your moving, like, lateral, and you called it like stepping stones or whatever, I used to call it lily padding, where like at Huntington, I was always doing these weird lateral moves, like such weird ones. Like, it makes my career at Huntington, coming from a teacher to 14 years at Huntington to consulting, I was in ops, I was in tech, I was in marketing and communications, I was at the mortgage company, I was in retail, and like none of it made any sense if somebody was like, what? Right. And that lily padding helped me understand the entire horizontal of business, where, so in my 20s, I was learning. In my 30s, I was doing. In my 40s, I was leading. But in my 50s, to get to your original question, Stephen, why start our own company? Because it's time for us to mentor and help other people do the learning in their 20s and the doing in their 30s as a leader and mentor, and help other organizations not make probably the same. I'll speak for myself, made a lot of mistakes. I still do. But if you can, as a parent, keep your kid from doing the stupidest thing, but kind of let them, give them enough rope to swim, but not enough to hang themselves, is like what one of my mentors told me.
Mhm.
Yeah, absolutely. I set my managers, I try to instill what I can in them, but I also, just like my kids, I allow them to feel the pain, allow them to get those scars, allow them to trip, fall, get a boo-boo, because that's what you learn from. And, in business, nothing's life or death. I mean, unless you're working on an oil rig or something, nothing's life or death. So you will most likely recover. I've made so many mistakes in my career and been given so much grace by really good leaders that, that's now it's my turn,
Yep.
You let people fail and then, they learn from it. And as long as you're willing to give that grace, I believe people will rise, and it's worked so far.
That's so cool. I was explaining to my team very early on a quote that we live by is, if you fire somebody for making a mistake, you give your competition that lesson learned. So
Absolutely.
good one to live by.
I love that one. Yeah.
I always make sure for failure, they say that you learn twice as much from failure than you do success. And you really only fail and to the point where you give up. And that's where a lot of like the grit and perseverance mentality comes in, where it's like you fall 7 times and you get back up 8. And both of you have just expressed like that there have been setbacks in your career, in your development, but you've been able to kind of look past upon that, learn from it, and adapt and overcome. And both of you kind of mentioned whether it's lily pads or if it's stepping stones, you've taken lateral movements in your career, and there might have been a financial setback. There might have been something else, but you were doing it because you were pursuing your passion. What would you tell somebody who's in that circumstance or that situation, who's either in their 20s or 30s, that is considering to make a lateral movement, but maybe there's just not enough incentive, or they just don't understand as much why?
You want to go first, Tony?
Yeah, I can go first, unless you want to.
You got it.
All right. What I would tell them, well, I'd correct you on one thing. I don't think I ever took a pay cut. So okay. Even in lateral moves,
wow,
I either stayed the same or, got a little more. So I don't think I've been passionate about anything enough as, a father of 4 to take a pay cut. So lateral moves, while in title, you don't get a bump, make sure you get some type of bump. And typically you will. Kate might feel different than that, but now I forget the question because I got off track.
Just the advice you would give them to kind of lose that extra amount of incentive.
Well, the lateral move, if someone's feeling stuck in their career, and why you would want to take a sidestep versus, because you're not always ready for the next step. We all like to think that we are, and we all like to think and that we're ready for promotion. And I hear that a lot from young folks. I've been here 3 years, and I'm ready to be a manager. I'm ready to be promoted, but there's somebody blocking me. There's someone in the way. Well, that may be true. It's probably not true. If you're ready to be promoted, you probably would have already been promoted. But taking that sidestep allows you a different route, maybe past that manager. Or, I had a senior executive at Limited Brands once. He asked me flat out, how many years have you been here? And I think I said 5 or something. And he looked at me and said, well, you got to go. And I was like, what? He was like, you've been here too long. You got to go. And he walked me through his career, and he had left Limited Brands, gone to several different companies, moved out west. I think he ended up at Gap, and then came back to Limited Brands, and probably 2 or 3 slots higher than his career progression would have been had he stayed. Had he stayed at Limited Brands, he probably would have bounced up 1-2 slots. Well, now he comes back with this world of knowledge, having taken that limited experience and applied it to these other businesses and gained more knowledge from these other businesses, when he came back to limited, he was a unicorn. Like, he was ready for that upper executive. So taking that sidestep sometimes opens up a new path and gets you on a whole different route. So you can't, if you feel like you're stuck, unstick yourself. You can't just stay behind, stay where you're at and complain. And, I don't hope that the person ahead of you dies or something, because it's just not gonna, it's not gonna happen. So, it's sometimes you just have to create your own new path, and it may bring you back full circle, or it may open up a whole new world to you. You never know.
Right.
Wow. You were just talking about like the importance of mentorship and leadership, and like I'm just thinking about how crucial that little tidbit of advice was for you from your mentor, how that shaped your career.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it was, and I never let it go. And if you look at my career path, I left Takea when Takea was at its prime because I wasn't challenged anymore. I had no reason. I was working till noon and my team was running great. And, by 12 o'clock, I was running out of things to do because the business was fantastic. I was playing pickleball and living a great life, had an office as, big as a basketball court. And from people from the outside, I had it going great, but I was so bored and I was not challenged. And someone in their mid 40s, I wanted more, and I wanted to provide more. And so that's why I took a leap to homage, and eventually why I took a leap to be my own CEO, because, this is a whole new challenge for me and something I've never done before. So, yeah. Sorry, Kate, I'm sucking up all the...
No, I love it. I would normally be a little more Italian and interrupt, but like what you're saying, we're so aligned. I will say my move from partner at a Big Four to running my own company is a pay cut. Now, long run, playing the long game.
For sure.
But I did never take a pay cut in the Huntington lateral moves or any of my consulting moves, Stephen. But the interesting thing I would say about lateral moves, and I'll find the study to post with this podcast, is you actually have more access to happiness and flow, job satisfaction. And there's a study Jason researched when we were first talking about, like, if you're always moving up, there's always going to be a ceiling if you haven't moved sideways in any way to complement some of your core skills. So for me, and where I knew I wanted to head with my career, because I did so much lateral moving, I can run a meeting with the COO, the CIO, the CEO, the CFO, the CRO, the CMO, and I've sat in almost all of their seats personally. And so when I run a workshop, and why we wanted to partner with Tony is because the COO piece is like where I'm lacking the most, and some of that operational piece is what we're finding one of the biggest problems globally that's creating burnout and impacting flow state. But when I get in a meeting and I'm prepared to talk to the C-suite, none of them have ever sat in each other's seats. But when you come at a conversation with, well, when you do that in marketing, what it does to this, bad or good or indifferent, to sales. And my personal experience with it, of like when I was only in delivery and consulting and the sales guys made all the money, and I'm like, what did they even do? I came in and did all of the solution engineering for them, and I ran this whole thing, and then I go have a sales role, and I'm like, the amount of work it took to get that meeting is insane. So it's like, I have a whole new respect for sales guys, right? Or like when I was running mortgage marketing in 2008 in the housing crisis, and having to understand compliance and legal and the hell my loan officers were going through, my marketing had to really answer a problem. So when you think about your role in a vacuum, because that's all you've ever done, you've always been in sales, you've always been in marketing, you've always been in ops without any lateral movement, there's so little empathy and understanding of that baton handoff and how you can make their job better and how they can make your job better. And with all of that as well, Tony, you were talking about like being bored and leaving work at noon and playing pickleball. Total burnout trigger, right? Like most people think, oh, I'm bored and don't have enough work to do, I'm good. No, you fall into out of the flow channel. So if you think of an X and Y axis, right, of challenge to skill balance, there's a flow channel. If it's too hard for you, you'll go into anxiety. If it's too easy for you, you'll go into apathy. And disengagement happens on both sides of that. Burnout can also happen when you love your job because you're just doing too damn much of it, right? So it's an interesting juxtaposition of what's going to actually make you more productive and reach peak performance. Like, let's just go back to the ruck, Stephen. Every single time I've been to one with you, you've upped the weight and increased how much of it you ran. And you're non-stoppable, right? And you could just be like, yep, I've made it. Or if you think about it with going to the gym and you just always lift the bar for your squats, right? Well, no, now I need to add 10 pounds. Now I need to add 20 pounds. Now I need to add 30 pounds, or you're never going to grow. It's the same principle.
It'd be in every sense of the word miserable.
Yep.
And I had never thought of it being burnout, that boredom or that complacency, but that totally makes sense. But I never would have equated it to burnout. But it definitely was. Now that
Fully disengaged, right?
Yeah.
Like you were just like,
Yeah.
whatever, I could do this job with my eyes closed. I think when I was in that state at certain roles, I just kept going to my boss going, can you, like, did anybody quit that I can just take their work on with mine? And she's like, we can't do that because then when you leave, we've got to hire 5 people. And I'm like, I'm bored. Like, help me out here.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting to, once you really truly define the definition for burnout, it's like how everything connects and makes sense. It's like, okay, so something that doesn't necessarily seem like it would be burnout, something that's just monotonous, it's like actually a high attributing factor. And you've been able to kind of like redefine, clarify, and sharpen the definition over the last 5 years. And I know that you wanted to share, some table or chart to show that. So
Yeah.
I'm
happy to do that. I think it was such an interesting and serendipitous intro when you introduced us to Tony and what we have found like I said, we'll be 5 in 1 week and 1 day. It also happens to be my dad's birthday, and why we launched on my dad's birthday 5 years ago is my dad was the consummate 1980s burnout guy, right? Like I call him, if you know the song Life in the Fast Lane, that's like, I just picture my dad. He was the Corvette driving, buying fur coats on his corporate card, working all hours, and when we started researching what's the impetus to this and just even visiting my friends and listening to their work calls during COVID while we're working from home, and I'm just like, she is going batshit crazy at work, but not because it's bad people or culture. Her business processes are all over the place. Her tech tools are a hot mess. And every single client that I worked with when I was deploying Salesforce was getting this new technology, but they were trying to put old business processes on this new tool. And so it was like, let me put a rotary dialer, which, Stephen, I don't know if you've ever even seen one of those.
I have.
You used to have to dial a phone by
seen it, but
the antique shops.
He's seen one, but he's never touched it.
So I have this joke where I have a vintage rotary dialer on my iPhone, and when I would meet with the COO, Tony, and they're like, oh yeah, we want Salesforce to do this, and this, and I'm like, but isn't that your like current state process, which isn't even current? Like, shouldn't we redesign what you want to do? And so what I'll share really quick, and then Tony, I'd love your reactions to, can you guys see the 5 to Flow global analysis?
Again.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, so just as a quick data point, we have been running 3 different diagnostics. One since inception, the Wellness Wave, which goes across people, culture, process, tech, and analytics. That's where the name 5 to Flow came from, is we believe that you can't have any kind of transformation without thinking of all 5. But as we did an analysis over these data points, the commentary, content from our flow IQ and our burnout IQ, that most organizations, this is a little dramatic, that obviously I use a lot of AI tools, and they named it the infrastructure performance death spiral. So Tony could be the clinician that helps us out. But our lowest scores on the wellness wave around the 5 core elements has been technology and process. And then in burnout has been around workload, and in the flow IQ has been around distraction. And so if you think about this as a vicious cycle, right? I think I have too much work to do. I go to do it, but I'm constantly distracted. And I go to do it in my technology tool, and it's disconnected from other systems. It's not modernized. The data is bad. And oh, by the way, it's a sales process from 1987. And so it becomes a cycle of like, I've got too much work, but I can't get it done. So I've got too much work because I can't get it done. And this is what we wanted to share, that it's like, if organizations are spending billions, according to research, on people and culture, and they're using diagnostic tools or employee surveys that only ask people and culture problems, look what they'd be missing, right? If you're investing in culture and people, but you've got high scores there, you actually, good news, because it's hard to change people. But if you're not investing in connecting your technology on a modernized process with these understanding, like we took a look at this crisis of workload and fairness. And so Tony, you and I have a shared client who are looking through that. And so this partnership made total sense of, if most of our customers' biggest issue is the way they're operating the business, and that's what's making everybody crazy. Like, think about it. If you're told, just get this contract done, here's your sales quota, and it takes you 3 weeks just to get it through sales ops, deal desk, legal, by the time you can actually sign a deal, and then it's past month end and you didn't make your quota, not because you didn't sell, but because your company couldn't get you through the deal. So Tony, I'm sure you've seen all of that. That's what we've been talking about.
Yeah, it's a vicious cycle that it may, like, people always want to go to culture, and I have always been that naysayer, that leader in the business, that I don't default to culture first. Most businesses, I mean, they overdo it, I feel, with culture, and throwing almost juvenile solves like birthday, like, not that birthday parties and recognition is, but there's almost a childlike manner in which they address issues when they don't realize that those become the issue. So I think of distraction, and then I think of so distraction's always on there, and that's an interesting one for me, because people want to get their work done, but then they have all these culture things that are popping up in the business, or they have all these culture activities, all these surveys and parties and all these things that are distractions that limit a person from doing their job within the time frame that they need to do their job, because they're being pulled to do these culture activities. So there has to be a balance where, okay, now you have to look at the technology, because, okay, if you're going to have people that spending X amount of time on culture activities, now they need technology to help them be more efficient in their job. So it's a really fine balance between, the real root of the issues, which is workplace satisfaction, culture, getting things done, processes. So you can't have one without the other. So if I'm looking at culture, I need my processes, I need my technology, I need everything to make their jobs easier so that they can actually enjoy the culture. If I'm only culture focused and all we're doing is having fun, eventually I'm having too much fun, I can't get my work done, and now I have this added stress. So that's what I like about the analysis that you have, because distraction always pops up, and that was one that I never really thought of. Like, and now I think about it, I'm like, yeah, people are distracted, and that distraction leads to inefficiency, which leads to stuff not getting done, which leads to burnout, which leads to poor job satisfaction. And so I love that your tool it's not just about culture. It is not fluff. It's not about pizza parties and recognition type things, even though that's very important. This is, to me, and the reason I gravitate to it is because it is operational in design, and it really gets to the root cause of things.
Yeah, I love that. And thank you for the recognition of that. And the way we put it with the 5 core elements, and it takes all 5 to flow, is you can't have a people initiative by itself. You can't have a culture initiative by itself. So if, like, with people, you want to create role clarity and do a RACI model and help make sure there's a quality set of goals, well, then there's probably a tool they could track it in, analytics that they need to manage, and a business process that they'll have to go through and make sure that the culture isn't big brothering, that they're actually a coaching culture. So I picture it sometimes like the 4x4 relay on a track. And if you only work with one of the 4 runners and only one section of the track, you're not going to have a good race. All 4 of the runners, in our case 5, need attention. Each piece of the track needs attention. You have to know who's cheering for you in the stands. You have to know who your competition is. You have to know which way the wind's blowing. And so that holistic and integrated view is where you start really solving these problems. And culture initiatives in a vacuum become noise, right? And noise as a distraction is going to also be a burnout trigger, because what is happening is every single time we're distracted, on average, it takes 23 minutes to get back to the level of focus I had before you distracted me. A lot of those distractions are self-inflicted, right? Like, we've got our cell phone sitting near us and we might scroll into Instagram or let our Teams or Slack notifications ping when we should be in a flow block. And so our goal in working together is, how do we help individuals manage their own flow states and burnout prevention, help the team leads do it, and then at the systemic level or systematic level, whichever word you want to use, get Tony in there to be like, this business process and this tech is not, like, no, let's fix this, because you can't have an individual still doing their terrible behaviors and fix it at the company level, or just have fix the people doing their terrible behaviors but leave it bad at the company level. This takes a holistic effort.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm. What I got from what Tony was saying is that pizza parties are not the solution for culture change. And I think,
we'll wait till you read my article on the opposite of that, of gaining 40 pounds on a project because it was too many pizza parties. Steak party, I'm on board with.
Yeah. That's not to say, like, don't have parties or anything, but I do think that somewhere along the line, the shift got, the perspective changed from, like, having fun as the pizza parties and not actually doing the work and not actually moving the needle, which like Tony just delivers so, brightly honest, honestly.
Well, one of the things I used to tell my teams is, what's fun? You're an athlete, you're Kate an athlete, winning is fun.
Jason literally said that yesterday.
For me, it's about winning, and I want my team to have that experience. And when your team is winning, that's as good as a cake sometimes, and so I think we just have to repurpose culture sometimes and build the type of build the type of culture that rewards winning. And we got to get back to that. Not just being there, not just fun for the sake of fun, but winning is fun, no matter where you are.
I love that. And Stephen, you're aware of this, but Tony, we haven't talked about it much. And in startup world, it's very important is winning and how you're motivated, right? And so each of my teammates took this assessment on their core motivators, and there are 4 that this assessment gives you, whether it's quality time, acts of service or support and help, words of affirmation, or gifts like a pizza party. Not a single person on my team in the original founding is a gifts person. So like throwing a party is like the last thing they want. They want time together. They want to work on projects together. They want to achieve a shared goal. And so it's very much like in the world of sport of knowing your role or your position, knowing your competition, knowing the goal. You know, like, do we want to just win, or is there a point spread we need to have here, or how do we want to win? What is the strategy? And so there's so much to be said for organizations who have a strategy defined and can create that clear shared vision and shared goal. And so every single thing you work on all day, whether that's by noon and then you go play pickleball, if you contributed to that shared goal, you could have still had some purpose in that. But it's such an interesting thing that started the whole founding of 5 to Flow with Jason being the co-founder is if business operated the way sports. Now, I'm not going to say the business of athletics, right? Like that's a whole different animal, but there's a coach who is constantly giving you feedback. Teammates give each other feedback on the field. You know exactly what your role is. There isn't a single person on the field that's going to go, well, I wasn't sure if you were taking the ball or if it was me, right? And if they do, they're going to run that play again, and that guy's going to get kicked out of the play if he doesn't run it right. And I mean, in playing sports myself, my whole career, if we were running a play in basketball or I had a role when I played baseball, I was get walked because I ended up with the best on base average on an all boys team because I knew my role and I played it really well.
Moneyball.
That's right.
I love that. A lot of people are looking for the magic, but the fun is the process, and the magic that you're looking for is in the work that you're avoiding. And a lot of organizations avoid that. So it's good to not only be called out, but to have like diagnostics and have analytics and messaging saying, hey, this is what's actually being left off the table.
Yeah.
I like that. All right. So how are we on time right now? I just want to be cognizant.
Probably like 3 more minutes, maybe. Closing thoughts.
All right. So I'd say let's go to best quotes. Because I don't want these quotes just to lay idle, and I want to hear your guys' thoughts and opinions on them. Okay. So first one by Tony Robbins is that people don't resist change, they resist the perception of change. What does that mean to you?
Go ahead, Kate.
Well, I have been a change manager since the dawn of time. I mean, I was a high school teacher, and basically I taught change and then went into corporate training. And as a change manager, I always said it a little bit differently. People don't resist change, they resist change that doesn't make sense. I think thinking that people resist change is quite hilarious given like cell phones didn't exist when I was in college, and now I can barely not be on my cell phone. Like the adoption and adaptation to new technology tools is on an exponential curve, right? Like how long it took people to adopt Facebook to how long it took people to adopt ChatGPT. Completely insane. So I don't believe people resist change. I think people resist changes that make no sense, where they don't see a benefit and value to it, right? Whether it's for them as an individual, for the team, for the organization, for their family, right? So I always used to use an example when we just talked about pizza versus steak. I always am on some kind of like carb restrictive diet. And when I was married, I tried to get my husband to give up Jif peanut butter because it had sugar in it. And I was like, the all natural one's fine. And he wouldn't give it up. And I had to follow the ADKAR model of how can I get him to see that the taste of that peanut butter isn't worth the risk of it. And so my new mantra, to make it as short as possible, is when the anxiety outweighs the joy, people will change. right? Like if the pain of staying the same isn't greater than the pain of changing, you're going to have to find a way to incent it.
Yeah, I'll keep mine short, but I agree with Kate. I think maybe, that quote is a generational thing. I think the generation now, I look at my kids, everything's changing. Like their whole life is adapting to change in all areas of their life. So, I don't see it as much as that. I think Kate hit it on the head. It's that lack of clarity. I can convince any team to make a change. But it's in the way that you deliver it. It's giving them the why. It's including them into the process. It's the clarity of the decision. I never saw change as I never felt change was hard to get. But I'm good at convincing. It's gonna happen anyway.
Well, you hit all the best practices, though, right? What's in it for me, right? We're humans. At the end of the day, if me changing from A to B has zero value proposition, somebody's gonna have to convince me, right? But I won't need convinced if the value proposition is articulated well, and if I was part of the choice. So if I'm gonna switch peanut butter, at least it better be one that I like. So give me a choice between two to replace this one, right?
Make it worth it, because peanut butter, it's I'll put that in protein shakes.
Please tell me you don't eat Jif. Sorry, Jif.
They have a better alternative now. I'll leave it at that. And then Kate, you mentioned the ACAR method, and part of that is the awareness. And I think change without like actually addressing and being intentional about the efforts of what you're doing is kind of like, I don't know, verbatim. You're just going around and around. And that's the whole purpose that we having this podcast, which I thought was interesting, is just to make people aware of the type of change that they can be into organizations and possibly their lives too. So I thought that was interesting. Second quote. All right. Gratitude is not an emotion, it's a conscious choice. Ed Milet.
Gratitude. Yeah, gratitude's one that, I think I learned later in life. I try to start pretty much every day with gratitude. And I think once you start, I'm not a religious person, but when you start your day or you head into work with gratitude being kind of at the forefront of your mind, people just feel it. It also, I kind of alluded to it earlier, but it also puts you in that stage of grace. As a leader, when I'm grateful for and I have gratitude for all the things that I have and my team and all those things, when things happen that are unexpected or bad, like it's so much easier to reach that state where you're willing to give grace and solve issues and solve problems as a team, as a leader. So I try to start every day out with some form of gratitude and just being grateful for what I have, because it's better than 99% of the world.
I love that so much, and it's so funny. I'm gonna have to find the picture to post with this post of me in a t-shirt that says grace, gratitude, grit. And we've talked about all three today, and it's such an interesting one because I'm working with a values coach, author David Nancaro, who calls himself the values guy, and we determined my core value is grace, among like all of the things, like what fundamentally drives me. So when you have a visceral reaction to something where you're not in gratitude and you're like, why is that making me so crazy? And it's like, oh, because they have no gratitude. They have a sense of entitlement. They're being disrespectful. And I need to now tap into grace. And how do I find every way possible to understand what they're going through? And I think that's the core of 5 to Flow. And our diagnostics and our partnership with you is you try to fix something without truly understanding what's at the root of the problem, you'll fix the wrong thing. And if you don't have gratitude for what's going right and tap into the strengths and have that growth mindset of like, man, it has been a tough week, but I am so grateful that I got to have this conversation. I'm so grateful for the people who are aligned to our mission and vision. I'm grateful that people are willing to work pennies on the dollar for an actual purpose-based business to help other people. And, you know, Stephen, I saw your post last night about where we are today and being the person who restores faith in humanity. And every time I see something horrible on the news or hear something terrible come out of someone's mouth, I'm like, interesting. I wonder where that comes from. I have to tap into grace and gratitude for the fact that people get to say what they're going to say, but I'm grateful that I can listen and digest and try to work toward positive solutions and positive change together. So in this partnership, I think it's a big one right here is gratitude. So Tony, thank you so much for partnering with us. I am so excited about our first couple clients we're talking to, and Stephen, grateful to you for making this intro and hosting this call. It's been super fun conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's more of these in the horizon. This was fun.
There is definitely a lot more. I have so many other great things that I wanted to bring up, discuss, questions I wanted to ask.
Part two.
Do that. So
Part two.
Part 2 is coming out here pretty soon.
Well, Stephen, I think I'll remind you, Sunday was World Gratitude Day, so we made a giant list of all the things we're grateful for over here. So please like and repost and check that out. I think growth mindset is a huge part of flow. And Tony, like with the companies you're working with now, like if they're in a fixed mindset, it's going to be a tough transformation for them. So here we go. Let's go.
Let's go.
Hopefully that was enough motivation to inspire people to actually make a call to action and make a difference and make the change in their organization or life. So I was hoping for this. I'm about to run through a brick wall, so I appreciate both of you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks, Stephen. Great job.